Hi everyone, my name is François de Charette. I work for the French Ministry of Digital Affairs, and we deal with the XR industry and creative industries. And by XR, I mean all 3D modeling, simulation, but also extended reality in itself. Whatever the sector of application, creative industries, industry, manufacturing, health, services, education, training, etc. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, François. And next up is Camille.
Thank you, Keith. My name is Camille Donegan. I'm CEO of immersive, which is the voice of the Irish immersive sector. So we have over 50 members, growing by the day. We only launched 1 year ago. So we represent companies in industry and academia, and we act as a bridge across the ecosystem to improve fragmentation and support the growth of these companies.
Shall I continue?
Silke, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. My name is Silke SCHMIDT. I'm the head of the XR Hub Bavaria. We are a project funded by the Bavarian Ministry for Digital Affairs. We have 3 locations in Bavaria, and we also try to support the community as good as we can. And we want to help shaping the XR development and to make Bavaria visible as an XR location.
Nigel.
Hi folks, I'm Nigel McAlpine. I'm the Immersive Technology Development Lead for an organisation called Digital Catapult, which is a UK government-funded organisation looking at how we can accelerate the adoption of deep tech, and that includes AI, quantum computing, future networks like 6G, and the bit that I'm interested in here to talk about, which is XR.
Fantastic. And me, myself, I represent the VRIN Immersive Learning Cluster based in Norway. We're also government funded by Innovation Norway in Norway. So the first question now is, what is the biggest challenge you have right now when it comes to immersive technology in your country? I see that, Camille, you're ready.
Always ready, always ready. This is a twofold question, challenges and opportunities.
And
but I'll start with the challenges.
Well.
So in terms of the challenges, most of our supports in Ireland are not sectoral specific. So the actual only dedicated fund that we have for immersive technologies in Ireland is through our film board called Screen Ireland. And it's an innovation storytelling fund to seed storytelling. So it's approximately 30k, and it's been really useful, but it only creates like a little prototype. And so we're also talking with them about having an ability to scale those projects. So I would say that's the #1 problem, and we've been very inspired in Ireland for a long time, looking across the water at the UK, because they have been supporting immersive technologies in a very targeted fashion since 2019, when they invested 33 million. And of course, Netherlands, the recent announcement of 200 million for immersive. So we're really advocating for some similar targeted and sectoral supports. And then opportunities, we have a really thriving animation, film and game sectors in Ireland. We have a very successful tax incentive called Section 481, which was for the film and recently was extended for games, Section 481A. So we're in conversation with government to extend this to also apply to immersive.
Fantastic, Camille. I'm going to go over to Silke.
Okay, yeah. I would like to start also with the opportunity, because we have Siemens, who is now actually in the lead of the Virtual Worlds Association. And so I think our biggest opportunity is to really build the industrial metaverse and to help industry solving real world problems. And I think you have heard about that earlier today. And then the challenge is to really get all the medium-sized companies on board so that they also really understand that there's a big value in using extended reality technologies throughout the whole value chain.
So medium-sized, getting them on board. What would you say is what's stopping them from getting them on board?
I think they have so many topics to cover, and then the economic situation is not that great, so that is not on the top of the list. And then sometimes they even don't realize that they are using extended reality technology. So we started working with our industry clusters. And so there's one organization called Bayern Innovativ in Bavaria, and they had to take care of really different sectors: automotive, mechatronics, logistics, even agriculture, and they were saying, well, we are actually using, or our companies are using extended reality, but we don't communicate it in that way, and I think that is a challenge, and I think that is actually quite good, because if they are doing it and just not noticing it, I think we are quite on a good way, and then we start communicating it a bit better, maybe that can help us a lot.
So identifying who's using VR and AR is not everybody's talking together. We've noticed this also in Norway. We need to work to identify. So sorry, I'm going to go over to the next person, which is interesting. Nigel?
Yep, thanks, Keith. Yeah, we have a little bit about that fragmentation still, even though the UK is quite got a decent amount of funding in different areas. It's still different agencies sometimes only cover certain elements and they pass people from one place to another. That's slightly changing, which is good, and we're helping to sort of advise, in inverted commas, those agencies the best way forward for that. But it's also probably a thing that is happening in most countries, perhaps, is that kind of the adoption or the barrier to entries drop with the price of headsets, for instance, coming down, and the workflows are changing with AI. That 3-4 years ago, you maybe had certain agencies who were top of the game, and they had multiple different aspects to look at, and they've had to focus because the barrier to entry opened up for everybody else. So you've now got this bit of dichotomy where you've got a big sea of people coming into the industry, which are, I guess, really good, which is the master builder thing that Ori Umpar was talking about earlier on. But then you'd lose that, perhaps, from our point of view. We need to support both of those. And we need to support the people that are in the first rung of the ladder, and then also how do we make sure the guys keep the lights on for the bigger agencies. And that's maybe a good and bad thing. One, I guess the opportunities for me is the kind of the convergence tools of AI and virtual production. We're seeing some of our companies who would have been seen purely in that vertical of XR being able to move sideways and have different USPs because of the workflows and the way AI is changing things. We are lucky to have the CoStar network in the UK, and we have a fantastic facility in Studio Ulster as well. And we're seeing a lot of the companies who are backing be able to move out into those opportunities in AI and VP and become, offer different services to the clients that they wouldn't have normally been able to.
Great. Nigel, François?
Well, thank you for the question. In terms of challengings, I would say one of the main ones is still about the definition and debunking the myth of what is XR and what it brings to the economy concretely. I mentioned in my introduction XR in itself, but also 3D modeling, simulation. We had the concept of metaverse. I think there's still a lot of confusion going on, not within the specialists, of course, but in the general economy and public policymakers on what is exactly XR, what is the scope of XR, what do we talk about, and of course, the buzz around metaverse has done some good and bad to the sector. So there's still some work to be done around this. And we also have, and that's my perception, some work to do in terms of documentation of what are the use cases, and that's related to the first point, that do bring more competitivity into the economy. It's not that well documented. We see some initiatives going on right now. I've seen some in Finland. There's a catalog of use cases, and we've been talking about it with Nigel as well. But there is some work to do of concretely what's the return on investment, what it brings, mostly to the companies, because there are many, many digital topics around in discussion. We have AI, we have cybersecurity, we have cloud, we have XR. So for actors to prioritize, they need to know what it brings to what their core value is. One of the other challenges is for the end users on the hardware sector. We do have the the wearability of the hardwares. Some people say we are waiting for the iPhone effect on the hardware. That's something we hear a lot. I don't want to do any communication about iPhone, but that's the expression that is being used. And there's also something going on about the killer app. People say we need the killer app that everyone will want, either in the mass sector or in the industries or more specialized sectors, to adopt XR. In terms of opportunities, I would say about the same than my colleagues here. In France, we have we are lucky to have two very strong sectors in the creative industry and the tech industries. So that's a real strength for XR. I would say we need to improve the dialogue between the two sectors outside the creative industries itself. I see many video games talents that can work in very industrial manufacturing companies because they bring this knowledge to XR applications. But the dialogue needs to be, I think, improved, and that would help the sector, the XR sector, to feel it is a whole, it is a sector in itself.
Maybe I can add an example. So we just did also Bayern Innovativ, the creative industries support in Bavaria. They organized a cross-innovation trip, and they combined creative industry companies together with health companies, and they put them together in workshops, and that worked really well. So I think that was a very useful format.
So I think it is an opportunity, but I think the consciousness of this is not widespread in the industries, so we need to improve this. Another opportunity we have is currently in Europe, I think. We have strong digital policies. We need to prioritize well, as I said, we have AI, etc. But we have strong policies with investment, so that's an opportunity. And I think we should seize this to better develop XR and XR use cases.
Yeah, and just for anyone who didn't see Michael Barngrover's keynote this morning, I loved how he framed the relationship between AI and XR. Because I was also using the narrative that, you know, maybe XR really needed the advances that AI has brought, but he flipped that on its head and he said, well, AI also really needs the visualization layers that the wearables for XR bring. So I love that way of thinking. It's so true. Like, XR brings a lot to the AI conversation.
And that might also help to get some of the money that is spent on AI.
Exactly.
Let me come back to the challenges as well. What we see is we have more difficulties convincing small and medium companies in terms of adoption of XR. The large companies, they are very well informed and they have the means to, you know, dig into it, test, invest. So we have something to do with small and medium companies, especially the manufacturing ones that we see would have a benefit adopting XR. And even when you talk to a large manufacturing company, some of them are very well used to 3D modeling, so they naturally go to XR more than other industries. And if you talk within one company to different persons, the chief strategy officer, the chief financial officer, the innovation director, the technicians, they all have a different perception of what is XR and what it could bring to the company. So there is no real alignment. So it's also connected to the use cases I was mentioning and the communication we could do. But that's one of the challenges we face.
We have the same challenge in Norway, that SMEs are almost non-existent when it comes to using the technology, except for public sector. Public sector uses it a lot, but you have the SMEs that create VR and AR solutions. But from my understanding here is that maybe the creative and the technical sector or manufacturing are siloed within each their field. Kind of, at least for us in Norway, this is the case because of the funding. The way the funding works in Norway is that you either fund companies that are going to scale up internationally, or you fund game or culture. So it's very separate. Game and culture are in the film fund, and everything else is in the private fund, and that kind of splits it. So my next question is current public funding helping the right people, especially small studios and SMEs, or are we missing the mark? I see Nigel, you're having your mic up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of depends. It's a horrible answer. It depends, but it depends the sector, it depends the amount of money, and depends how it's spent. I think generally better understanding of what's needed on the ground from the funders is key to design the right programs for the right outcomes. You know, we're seeing certainly that, and I'm a big advocate of trying to make sure that the agencies that Camille mentioned, and you've mentioned too, that fragment it, understand the audience they're trying to hit, not just designing it with, well, now ChatGPT. In the old days, it was you know, a bunch of Google searches, but to make sure that it's the right outcomes they're trying to achieve. examples that in Northern Ireland we've got the Arts Council, who before maybe didn't know the terminology of XR. So the way they described it, they wanted immersive companies, but they called it something different. So they didn't recognise the audience. And that's an old trait for me, ex-BBC, saying, to know your audience first. So it's the terminology, sometimes you have to get it right to make sure you're attracting the right people. But generally, I would say we're doing okay in that regard, especially small companies and SMEs. There was a time when the smaller SMEs were choked by some of the bigger funding, that it was repeat, and the same companies got the same money. But I think we're quite confident that it's starting to hit the right people.
Silke?
I think there is a number of different funding programs, and maybe the first challenge is to find out which is the right one, because they are like on the regional level, then on the federal level in Germany, and then on the European level, there are different programs, and they have a wide range. They go from startup support, to also what you said, like the film funding, games funding, and we have actually a program for XR applications in arts, education, and training, and also health and sustainability. So this program was created because, games both games and film try to not share their money that they have, and so we needed to create a new program so that we didn't have this struggle all the time. And I think that works pretty well. And so all the more innovative projects that are neither games nor film, but they are XR, and they get funding, and maybe this is also one point, and I try to preach that everywhere, that there are narrative XR experiences, and they are a new medium in itself. It's not a game, it's not a film, it's something on its own. And I think this is also something that not everybody has understood, because often I read in the newspaper, well, for a film this is somehow, I don't know. But it's different, and I think it should also have different criteria to be judged. Okay, but now I've gone away from the funding question. So I think there's a number of programs, and I think if you know where to go, it works pretty well. Even though like the criteria, sometimes the application processes are quite cumbersome, and I've also spent hours in the European database filling in different forms, and then it was not successful in the end. So maybe this is not so stimulating, but it's part of the game, and I think we all have to do it.
And my take here, Silke, is that XR is such a new medium. I would say it's the strongest medium out there, but it doesn't have its place yet in the structure we already have for funding, for anything. And that's where it kind of fizzles away sometimes.
I would also concur that we have this, like in some countries, I know in Germany and France, it very much fell into the lap of the film industry. It didn't really happen like that in Ireland, which is good and bad. So we have a strong startup support ecosystem in Ireland. So we've got the local enterprise office, and then also Enterprise Ireland, depending on how many employees you have. But I think something that's really important is that the business models are changing, the shape of a company is changing, the way that we used to do business is not the way that business will work in the future. So I think a mindset shift is really needed across all governments and all support and funding agencies to look at what the future business models and market will look like, and how will you access new markets. But on the positive side, we have really great ecosystem of Enterprise Ireland overseas support agencies. I think there's over 40. So if, I know Invas are in the audience here, if they want to broker the US market, for example, they will be met very well on the ground by the EI representatives in San Francisco, California, Boston, etc., and get introduced to potential buyers there. And that is an amazing resource. We were at South by Southwest Austin last year at Ireland House, and the companies got to meet a lot of really strong possibilities. To win those large US projects, you need to collaborate, for sure. Like a lot of the smaller studios wouldn't have the capacity, but that's also something we advocate at Immersive, is work together so that you can win these bigger contracts. And then I think the European, like the Horizon funding is out of reach for a lot of our members because they don't have the resources to work on these applications. But navigating some of the existing supports is getting better. Like we have a new website in Ireland, NEH.gov.ie, which is like makes it much easier. You literally put in what type of company you are. It shows you what kind of supports you can avail of, and you can go on this journey, starting with innovation vouchers, which means that you can do some R&D with a research entity, and you can maybe try some prototyping, for example, and then you can go on the next step. And this is also getting tied in with the EDIH, the European Development Innovation Hubs, and I think there's an opportunity to look across Europe at combining the resources in those hubs and the funding available. But for example, at EDIH, one of the EDIH centres that we have in Ireland is called Entire. It's based in Waterford in the Walton Institute, and we're going to run like a stakeholder mapping. And what this will mean is we'll have a workshop where a lot of our members, we look at like problems, challenges, opportunities for growth, and identify maybe 2 or 3 prototypes that we could build to raise the ecosystem in Ireland. And then there's funding through these EDIH mechanics for those prototypes, and that's really exciting possibility for us to explore next year.
So you're funding prototypes?
Yeah, through the EDIH, primarily. Innovation vouchers are not really fit for that purpose, right. But the European funding through EDIH, can they call it a test before invest. Makes sense.
I think that's a good way of doing it. We've done that similarly in Norway, where we had 3 pilots, where we fund like 50% of it. And that doesn't go, they don't have to go through a very lengthy process to get that money. But the only thing is that they have to share their experience after creating the pilot has to be shared to the cluster. François.
Our current plan, which is still open, its name France 2030, is focused on calls for projects. And we have 2 tracks with regards to immersive. We have immersive culture and we have immersive technologies. The first one looks at cultural use cases, but it also encompasses projects that have technological developments, graphic engines, for example. The second one is agnostic in terms of use cases. It can be in manufacturing, health care, education, training, retail, luxury, whatever, as long as it develops technological assets, be it hardware or key components of hardwares or softwares. So we have ongoing calls for projects. We do not really look at the size of the company. That's not one of the criteria. We look at the capacity of the company or the consortium to carry on the project. So it can be a very small company allied with a larger group, with a research center, whatever. We look at the capacity to accomplish the project. That's what we focus on. We do look at projects that have a significant impact on the sector. So that's our way of viewing it, not the company, but the impact of the project on the industry. Is it a game changer or not, basically? And what we also look at is the way the company is, or the consortium is orienting the project to a very concrete, measurable use case. Is it directly or not, or is it soon to be connected to a commercial use case? We can still be in a research and development phase, but it has to have a perspective of commercialization. And I mentioned it as well. We look at the hybridation between knowledges, competencies. I said the cultural track has a break of technology development. We really want to kind of create this opportunity for the sectors to better dialogue. It's not that they don't dialogue, they do, but it has to be better known for a better adoption of XR. So that's the way we fashioned this program. And then we have other fundings which are more traditionally oriented towards investment into companies, but that's a bit different. XR has been carried by public policy through calls for projects.
How much funding is that? Like, what's the percentage? How?
It's still open, so we can still have projects, they have to be French or European. I cannot mention any budget, but
No.
but still.
Now we're talking a bit about solutions. So the next question is, well, before we go over to the next question, is that we don't have much time. We really want to have some Q&A. I think there are a lot of good questions here. So the next answers, I would like them to be max 25 seconds.
Got it.
25 is a strange
it's
number.
It's going to be hard to count. All right, so next up is, what other public tools would make a real difference? For example, tax incentives, sandboxes, or procedure rules? 25 seconds.
25, okay. Okay. I've been on all sides of this, so I've been on kind of like designing programs, applying for myself, helping to judge them, funding, that is, funding programs, and, you know, helping companies apply. So for me, it's not necessarily tools, it's just better process, or get back to knowing your audience. So it's like not as much last minute underspend. We get constantly quite a lot of organizations saying, right, we've got this money, now needs to be spent in 6 months. Have in-reason seminars, face-to-face, not just one quick hour webinar, so you really understand the people you're trying to get apply for the funding, and for the funders themselves to understand it. Flexible iterative feedback rather than a straight yes or no. I've got more, but I'll shut up. Done.
That was very good. That was, yeah. Silke.
Okay. I think tax incentives would be very useful, and at the moment they are being discussed for the game sector in Germany. Finally, I think after a really long time, and I would love to see that being extended to more XR applications. I think that would be really cool. Then you also mentioned sandboxes. I think that's a completely different thing, because that's more to try out new things and test the legal boundaries, and there's also a law being established in Germany on these sandboxes, but so far I think nobody really understands how far they can go, and I think you in Norway, you have tested some applications, but according to the existing law, or also going beyond, and so I think it's interesting, and we need to do it, because the law is always too slow, so technological development is much faster, and so I think Sandbox is a good tool to bring these worlds together. Yeah, and then your last question was on the procurement. Oh, okay, then I pass on.
Just a quick one, very quick one from my end. So sandboxes is not, well, at least not in Norway, it's not a term we're using. Can someone just explain very quickly what the sandbox term, what is it?
Well, and I'm also not an expert on that. I understand that you bring together people and they work on a use case, and you don't really know what kind of legal implications you have, and whether they will restrict you in your innovation work. And then you bring together different people and you try to find out what's actually the case. So this is how I understand it.
Okay, that's just a term of sandbox. That sounds good.
Yeah, in terms of sandboxes, so we've been hearing this term for a couple of years in meetings in Europe as part of the VRA or coalition, and we were like, we want one of these, and then we didn't know what it was. But actually, I think I prefer the idea of like a test bed or a test lab, which can also, of course, work as a regulatory sandbox. Of course, you can have policymakers in there, brainstorming and iterating and trying something, maybe with like, I don't know, digital human. So we're exploring this concept with Údarás na Gaeltachta, who are the Irish language support agency for business in Ireland. And we're looking at developing a medtech sandbox or test lab, a space where, for me, the most important part is the collaborative elements. So we have a lot of really great like labs and innovation centres in Ireland, but most of them are kind of behind academic lock and key. So as a XR startup, I can't go in there and play with all the toys and try stuff myself. You can only go in to work with the researcher that's based there through an application process. For me, that's very limiting. So I love the idea of going somewhere. It can have many different faces depending on the people who want to come in and try and experiment and build something. Yeah, and also you talked about public sector applications. We don't have any yet in Ireland, so Garda Síochána, our police force, need to be trained with virtual reality, and all of our healthcare workers. We have some education training boards using it, but the public sector service is not yet using it, so again, it's a work of our immersive to drive the adoption across all sectors.
That's interesting. I didn't know that, because Norway, we're very heavy on public sector. So
I want all those case studies and metrics.
possible.
Well, if we consider that in terms of public policy, the hard power is financing and regulation. We have been talking about it. So maybe we could work also on the soft power of XR. That means, as public policymakers, make it more recognized within the digital ecosystem, self-conscious of its strengths, a better understanding of this complex ecosystem that is between tech and creation. We have hardware, software, immersion or not, 3D modeling. That's quite complex, I think, for people that are not very close to these subjects. And sharing the good practices, I think we can really impulse that. The good use cases I mentioned for small and medium companies that do not know very well how to be positioned with XR. I think that's something we could also do, and that will help the sector outside funding and regulation.
Fantastic. You guys are doing great with the 25 seconds. So, and actually, we're actually going over to the next question. We've already talked a bit about it, and it's, which support structures, like hubs, labs, association, or public programs actually help companies adopt immersive technology? We talked a bit about it with sandboxes, a bit of labs here and there.
Yeah, so we also have a lab where people can come, and so we invite people also that have not used XR very much before, and so to give them access to the technology, and because you can talk about it forever and nobody understands what it actually means, but if you try it, then you understand immediately, and then we can see that people start thinking, oh yes, I could use this for something else. So it takes a lot of resources, because if people don't have experience, you need many people from our team to help them, but I think it's worthwhile doing it.
Yeah, you need to try it before that's what I've noticed, at least in the VR industry, is that you can show them videos, they'll look at it and be, it's nice. But once you put a VR headset, that's when you understand, okay, this is what I can use it for. This is how I can use it.
They're experiential mediums. They have to be experienced.
It has to be experienced. And this is my question, actually. Are labs outdated? Like, since VR has become more standalone, like it's more portable. Is it better to go to companies, or is it better to have a physical space and invite companies there?
I think it's a bit of both, but we've certainly noticed that it's not just the question around hubs, labs, associations, live events and public program off the back of sandboxes, or you can't just have them in isolation. You talked about it, Camille, about things being locked away behind academic institutions, which of course have their place. But we have the National Digital Twin Centre, for instance, which we run out of Belfast, even though it's a UK national programme, and we have the UX/UX specialist in the crowd, Mr. Kevin. We have, and we have a great lab facility there where there's a range of kit and tech you can play. But going back even earlier than that, there was an immersive lab set up in Belfast at Catapult, where I first met Camille, off the back of a thing called Surroundscapes, which is a spatial audio cohort that we took from place to place to place. So what I'm trying to say is that while it's great to have clusters, it's really important to make sure those clusters are used wisely and widely, so that you get a chance to have people to try headsets on, but also to know that they can walk off the street, or they can avail of it of a time that suits them.
Very good.
I think one advantage of being a little bit late to the Sandbox Test Lab XR Centre is that we can, be quite innovative now at this point. So actually we just got our first, the one that I'm aware of, like Mobile Innovation Lab, and I just learned this morning that Sweden have one too. I'm like, how cool, let's swap and collaborate. I love the idea of Virtual Sweden's content coming into the Mobile Innovation Lab, traveling from Dundalk to Newry and back and wherever else it's going to go. This is a manufacturing program that we're going to be running for the next year. And yeah, I like the idea of having something very nimble. I guess I've always been in the indie studio world myself as a content creator and producer. So I don't like massive capital infrastructure projects where everything's outdated in 5 minutes. So a lab, you can just have the latest kit, You do a tour, you don't invest too much in the kit, and then you iterate and keep changing.
And on the question whether people should come to our lab or whether we go out, I think both is possible. And of course, it's easier for us if people come to us, because then everything is fixed and we can see before that it works well. But we also had really good experiences in going out also to smaller places in Bavaria and take a number of headsets, and people were really interested in trying them. And then, of course, it's also nice to organize big exhibitions at film festivals. We do the VR pop-up cinema during the documentary film festival, and then we partnered with the film festival, even one theater, the Festival of the Future, and our funding organization to organize what we called Munich Beyond, so a big XR exhibition. And there, so we were opening it up to different communities, so the film community, the theater community, and I think to bring people together, that makes also much sense.
What I really like from this discussion right now is that it seems like labs are very important, but I haven't thought about this cross-country part of having labs. That if you have a lab, you can talk to another country and say, hey, you have some really good tools and very good cases. Can we borrow it a bit? And then maybe we can showcase your cases. And it's just sharing and caring in Europe with different labs. What we should do, yes, we should make a list of all the labs.
Yeah. Yep.
And really work together. So now this is my take. François, you had something you want to say there?
I have the intuition that call it labs or hubs that would work as a platform, bringing in developers of technological solutions, software, hardware, creators, but also end users and adopters of XR. Would work quite well with regards to all what we have said. And also labs that would associate the R&D departments or R&D universities to work into an applied way of research and development.
Great, and I'm seeing that, EU is trying to do something, right? There's test beds is something that came out recently and kind of fits within that. And actually the next question here, that's written here at least, is, how well do your national efforts connect to your European initiatives like Virtual Worlds, Horizon, or Digital Europe, and where is the gap?
Application writing, resources. So we have a really strong national point of contacts, NCPs, I always get that the wrong way around. National contact points. In Ireland, Stephen O'Reilly is the one that we work with in Enterprise Ireland, and he really has helped us as an association to navigate all the different mechanics across Europe. But I do think there's a lot more to be done, specifically on virtual worlds, particularly with the advances of the Virtual Worlds Association and the PPP with Siemens. So I think there needs to be strategic thinking and planning around how we build European consortiums for virtual worlds explicitly. And Immersive are very happy to be helping with that because it's super important. And of course we can do it ourselves. Like we all know each other across the associations in Europe, and we're all members of XOR for Europe, which definitely drives this consortium building activity. And we were part of 7 applications this year. We're waiting to hear we know one failed, but and then also navigating the different mechanics in like Digital Europe funding and Creative Europe funding, etc. So we're kind of new as an association to really understanding all of the different funding opportunities, and we're doing our best to be able to help our members to navigate it. And we see ourselves as a conduit and a bridge to accessing these. So sometimes we sit in on consortia building exercises that we know we won't be part of the application, but at least if we're at the table when it comes to the application writing, then we can bring in the member and be very explicit with what they need to do. They don't have to have that long cycle. It's like a long sales cycle, but it's a long consortia building cycle. So I think there's a lot more we can do to be helping smaller companies to be at the table for European funding.
I'm quite excited about the Virtual Worlds Association, and we applied on day one when it got online, and we got an email on Friday that we are now a member, which I think is really cool. And I think it's so important because then we can really shape the strategy and work together on what is actually needed to bring Europe forward. So, and and we also use this on the regional and national level to stress that this topic is so important. And then on the funding, of course, we are also, I think, very grateful to XR for Europe to bring together the different associations and hubs and share proposals, because usually nobody knows who is preparing something, and I think it's really good to come together and to exchange and form consortia together. That is very helpful.
And on one of the consultancy firms that we've been talking with, who that's their whole job is helping entities to navigate European funding and build consortia. They told us that the applications for one specific call went from 200 applications last year to 2,000 this year. And that's because of ChatGPT. So people are throwing in like really crap applications, and this is going to make the European Commission's job really, really difficult. So we also need to, come together to make really strong proposals that, make the rubbish ones go quickly into the bin. But maybe something needs to happen on that, because that's just a waste of resources for everybody. We need some sort of checker.
Yeah.
Yes, well, there is a Q&A. Okay, right.
We were recording, so we want to make sure to get the questions in the recording, so if you don't mind. Thank you.
There is a very easy read, as the applications will very easily lower their points by using ChatGPT. So for all readers, it's very fast to take them out and put them in the bin. So for people having projects to burn for, use the mind.
Use the mind.
Use the mind.
François.
Well, to me, the only fact that the EU has written a strategic roadmap on the topic, isolated from others, is a good move. And the scope of it seems quite complete and in coherence with what we've been doing in our different countries. So to me, it's positive. And we also have been very proactive in steering participation into the associations, working groups, with developers of solutions, but also adopters, which is very important. There might be one thing that needs to be thought or better understood is the works on standards and norms that can be open in different international organizations. It's very technical, so I'm not sure I could be an expert on this, but it seems to be a corner topic that hasn't been mentioned, but maybe there's something to do about it in the virtual world perspective. Sorry.
That's a good take. Yeah, I've had that issue where we worked with I mean, just the system, like economically, taxation, and how to explain it to each other. And, one project almost went bust just because of that. So yeah, can absolutely relate to that. Nigel, I'm not sure if you.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's funny sitting here from a UK perspective and watching all the Europe stuff. We had a thing called Brexit that happened, which moving on. But yeah, we do have a team of people actively looking at the opportunities now, because we left a massive big brown envelope at the back door. The EU and I were back in. But we are connected to things like the 60 Leader Programme, DigiFed back in the day, and then we're two exciting ones at the minute, linked, the Vopus one around opera, and then a cool one looking at a restoration site in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland, about looking at how sensors and IoT and Gaussian splats and VR can monitor that site. But I think, just to reiterate the point about having live events, and the way I learn about these kind of things and properly investigate and understand what's happening is to meet really knowledgeable people, like the people sitting beside me at events physically. So I think it's vital to come to places like this to understand the opportunities in Europe.
Great. Now, I really want to go for the Q&A. So we have one last, I have one last question, and I think you guys can manage it in 10 seconds. Think you'll be able to do that? Okay. So if you could change one thing next year to boost immersive technologies across Europe, what would it be? 10 seconds.
Let's be fast then. I would not change something, but I would encourage something. It seems we do not have a very strong integrator in Europe. And if we could have one leader that would, really work as a hub in itself and drive the whole sector into one very strong and symbolic project, that would be very positive.
That's a very good one.
I would reiterate my point around improved consortium building, specifically for virtual world European projects, so whatever supports could be made available to entities like immersive, or for us to work more closely with the Irish government to make this possible.
Fantastic, Silke.
Then I add something on the opposite side. I would encourage mass adoption. So give headsets to, maybe not to everyone at home, but really to give it to cultural places, to libraries, to schools, but together, with high quality content and some people advising the other people what they have to do, because just giving headsets also doesn't really help, I think.
That's a good one, mass adoption. Yes,
And just quickly to say, we have headsets in 3 libraries in Dublin, and I didn't realise this was such an anomaly until I've been mentioning it in other European countries. So everyone in Lithuania was like, "Oh, please give us all the information," because they're partnered with Unity. So the young people come in, they program in Unity on the computers in the library, and then they put the content on the headset and they get to explore and iterate. So they're learning at like 12, 13, 14 years of age how to use Unity, and then see the results in a headset and collaborate together. How cool.
Nigel?
Yeah, I suppose to go back to the funding point about the kind of the people who decide on the funding, and just to know the audience more and spend more time talking to industry, and especially the people who might apply.
Great. Okay. Fantastic. Just a quick round of applause. Yeah. Now we have 8 minutes for questions and answers.
All right, so please wait until I get to you to state your question so we can make sure it gets in the recording. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Catherine Allen from Lumina Immersive. Good to see you here. I was wondering, actually with Brexit being brought up, it made me think about differences in public policy, especially sort of thinking about government-led policy on immersive in different countries, and the differences you've seen. I'm really curious, because we've got such a brilliant panel here of different perspectives, what government policy you've seen really works for immersive, and maybe what doesn't, and what sort of differences in the countries are.
I'll jump in because we don't have that many kind of noteworthy examples yet. I'm part of an Interreg project called DigiContent with other European countries, which is explicitly looking at where XR should be inserted and involved in policy, like spatial planning, for example. So we have 2 policies in Ireland that explicitly name immersive technologies. One is the Digital Arts, the Arts Council Digital Arts Policy, so it's listed, but there's no funding at all for it yet. And each department says it's not in their remit, so that's kind of crazy, but hopefully that will change. And then the roadmap for digital creative industries, so immersive is funded, partly funded through to support the roadmap for digital creative industries, which is from 2024 to 2026. And it's quite interesting. It's actually an Irish first. That a forum is co-chaired by 2 departments in government. So we have the Department of Arts, Culture and Heritage, and then the Department of Enterprise and Trade. And so we are in dialogue once every quarter about the needs and wants from the games industry, the immersive industry, the advertising industry, and the design industry and the craft industry are there too. So the idea is to discuss challenges and also opportunities from our sector, but very importantly, we absolutely need to benchmark the digital creative industry's size, scale and scope, and we need to do this following best-in-class European methodologies. So Europe really only released these figures themselves last year, so that's great. We have kind of like, we can unpick how they did it, and that's what we're hoping to do in 2026 as the digital creative industries in Ireland. We also need to decide, is it creative and cultural industries? The semantics can get complicated, because I think that's the first thing we need to decide. Are we talking about digital creative industries, or are we talking about cultural and creative industries? Because they're 2 different sets and subsets, right?
I think that's massive. Certainly, Catherine will know well, in the UK, that it all depends who has the money, who judges what you are, and how they spend it. So that the industrial strategy is the big one, and then we're lucky the creative industries has been recognised. But then, next government that might not be the case. And what we call ourselves is creative technologies, so that people in the kind of halls of power and think that's a good terminology, then get the money this way. So it sounds pithy to say semantics, but they're very important, what language you use as to how you get the policy changed to suit the people on the ground.
Yeah, and of course it affects the data massively. If you have software development under the data collection for the cultural and creative industries, or creative and cultural industries, that completely skews the data, right?
Okay. We are funded by the Ministry for Digital Affairs to the largest extent, then by the Bavarian Media Regulatory Authority. And we also get some money from a second ministry, the Ministry for Arts and Culture. And I don't mind getting money from different ministries. I would love to get some also from the education side, and then also from the Ministry of Economics. We are not there yet, but let's see what we can do in the future. And I think that, yeah, what you said earlier, it's connecting all the different disciplines and sectors, and so it's not straightforward in the structure, or in the classical structure of ministries.
Agree. Connecting all the disciplines are important. Like here, not here, Norway, the way we get funding is that the funding is from Innovation Norway. And our members, if they're SMEs, 90% of it is covered by the Norwegian government. So they get they only pay 10%. But the problem is that it's only geared towards SMEs. We cannot have public companies and get the same kind of funding for them, and that creates kind of a divide. So for us, we need to find funding that incorporates both private and public sector together, because this is where VR really thrives, in both sectors. It's just a powerful medium. That's it. Nothing? Other questions? We have 3 minutes left. There we go.
That was a great question. Does anyone have anything else? Yes.
Hello, Valérie Riffaut from Rehabs Consulting in France. I think you mentioned something that was really interesting. It's labs and hubs, and I saw some excitement about sharing ideas. And would you, because I think it's interesting because it comes as well with use cases that might be more important in certain countries than other. It comes as well with maybe creating consortium in a more easy way, because we would have knowledge of the different labs' strength. So my question will be, how would you see the scheme to make those labs connected in a way, and not only the main countries, but up to Slovenia that might have fantastic ideas, or Poland, Romania, many countries that might all have their different hubs and labs and strengths. What would be the process ideally to make it happen?
I have an idea on this. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, because again, we don't have anything yet. We're still beginning, really. I only discovered recently that Fab Lab, so we're working closely with Creative Spark. They're the largest fab lab in Ireland. They have the best 3D printers, the best laser cutters, ceramic printers, you name it. It's really amazing, the scanners, etc. And we just did a design sprint with our members and their members. It was fascinating. So I learned Fab Lab was an initiative of Stanford University. And so you can basically say, we have X amount of money available. They will advise what kit you should get, and then what programs you can run, and how many people you need to facilitate that lab, and then they train the Fab Lab people, facilitators. This is amazing to me that this model exists, and for 6 months you can go on a deep dive to learn to be a Fab Lab facilitator. I would do this if I had the time. So I love this analogy for XR labs or hubs around the world, that we could have a methodology that's kind of packaged, right? And so you have 1 million, you've got 500,000, you've got 5 million. You can reverse engineer the lab, but there's an exchange possibility because you have similar infrastructure, similar standards, interoperability possibilities. This is happening in the virtual production world, which I think is really interesting, and it's driven by the hardware. So Row Display, who make the best LED panels, or so they say, I think they are the best, they have a network of all of the virtual production facilities in the world that are using the Row Ruby 2.6 LED panels, because they can easily exchange and have the same color calibration from the virtual production place in Sweden and in Ireland, do you know? So if we had something similar for XR, then I think the exchange opportunities are much stronger, because the infrastructure supports it, that you have a methodology, a program, and all of the same hardware.
Good take. Silke?
I think it has taken some time for all the regions to develop their hubs, and I think now we are at the next stage where we also come together. And XR for Europe is organizing a workshop tomorrow, for instance, to bring people together and to see how we can collaborate even better. And in addition to that, there are now lots of events where we also meet up at, somehow, and then also I think we can exchange work together and have ideas about joint projects.
I think just a quick note, at least on my end, is that having incentives for SMEs to give their like a free license, or that there's funding for paying for licenses. For at least in Norway, we have several companies that have more like a SaaS software where you pay per month or yearly. So it would be great that at a lab that's covered, so that their software is there, or that it's attractive enough for us from Norway to have it in France because we want to reach out internationally. So try to really find out what works for the SMEs. Question. Turns out we have more time, don't we?
We have 1 minute left, so if anyone wants to ask a quick question before our next session, now's your chance.
Okay.
Anyone?
The only thing I was going to add to that, if definitely no more
Please.
questions? No more questions, sure. Don't want to steal your thunder. No more questions?
We'll have to wrap it up pretty quick, so if you want to go ahead.
No, it was just that on that, how do you network that kind of connection internationally? And I suppose another thing to mention is local authorities. And local authorities are really important. We work quite closely with Belfast City Council. And then you've got that connection to smart cities, and then smart cities got connections European and global and things like that. So I think that's an interesting way that we're looking at as well. How do we partner up with the people who are really doing that job internationally to then piggyback off the back of that?
Sounds good. And just really quick question for you, the chair here. It says that it's until 1625. But,
is it?
but
Okay. I was told it was until 4:30, so...
What was it? Oh, sorry, it is. It is 4:30.
Yes.
My bad.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry.
So let's give a round of applause.